Hey RV family, keep it high. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one I'm going to be covering the new Mental Cruelty record entitled A Hill to Die Upon. Mental Cruelty, I have a past with this band in the sense that one of my favorite and most influential YouTubers to my own craft on this channel, Count Blagorath, turned me on to them with an EP they released, and it just continued to make me more and more excited as time went on and they officially started dropping full-length records. In the 2010s, anyone that has been an avid follower of Deathcore, specifically of the more brutal and over-the-top variety, say the Unique Leader Records camp, or just generally brutal deathcore bands in general, will know that there's been sort of this growing trend of deathcore bands that have been incorporating a lot more black metal into the formula. I would say that the first band that I can really trace this back to that was on my radar that I was actively enjoying back in the day, absolutely Make Them Suffer. I think in many ways they popularized bringing black metal into deathcore to a major degree, and Mental Cruelty definitely falls under that vein. This German band simultaneously cycles through having these high-octane brutal deathcore bits, but also these frigid black metal sections with roaring blast beats and really fast-paced guitar work, conjuring up twisting labyrinths of these voodoo-infused riffs that just have an evil and a demented nature to them. Infurious, their 2019 full-length, was their last official release leading up to this, and there hasn't really been that big of a gap between the two releases. That record, in my opinion, was the first time that Mental Cruelty felt like they lived up to their potential, and while I was enamored and extremely excited for this record, one of the biggest questions I had going into it, question mark wise, was amongst the growing field of blackened deathcore bands, was Mental Cruelty going to be able to stand out, considering what they did to begin with was a lot more original and fresh, even as close back as 2017. Mental Cruelty have just sort of jumped on that boat in recent time, and I'm not going to say it was for trending purposes or clout purposes, but it definitely does throw in a lot more unique flavor, because strip back some of the black metal bits, and I think Mental Cruelty falls in line with a lot of other brutal deathcore bands. It's just in the way that they produce their records, and it's in the way that they put it right in front of your face and put these elements into it that makes it seem like there's more going on than there necessarily is. Now, as someone that would consider deathcore to be one of their favorite genres, a genre that I have tirelessly covered on this channel for year after year after year, Mental Cruelty has the gut, the grit, the gusto, the tenacity, and the infuriated nature that seems to summon Armageddon with every single riff that they churn out of the guitar, or every single gunshot hit of the percussion, or the newfangled way that they find to make a vocal sound so gargled and destructive and disgusting and oozing and like just straight vomit coming out of someone's mouth. The layering is pretty much just as it ever was, but just sounds more horrific and more gross. I think they've upped the camp across this record also. While I did find myself enjoying a lot of how over the top this record sounded, because I'm a sucker for those really brutalized takes on technicality and bringing together black metal, a lot of times sections that do bring black metal into the fold will sound very theatrical and, dare I say, a lot of times on the nose, such as the ascending and descending vocal refrains on Ultima Hypocritia, I believe it is called. It is so cheesy in the sense of, I respect what it was going for, but it is just so theatrical. Or the sort of breakup bit, I would not call it a breakdown, but the solo bit on King of Fire. You can't tell me that they're not just trying to make this sound like some fantasy movie where you're standing at like the gates of hell and it is opening up to like a war of angels and demons. I understand what they were going for, and they have the aggressive nature to be able to bring it together, but some of these moments definitely left a smile on my face, and not in the musical sense, with just how shining it seemed and just how epic it was trying to portray itself. In that interlude track, Fossum Brate, I believe it is pronounced, I apologize, I'm not the best with pronunciations of certain titles. It really is a beautiful sort of like folk ominous interlude that sort of draws it together, but once again, it sounds like it is trying to be like a blockbuster breather. And then we get to something obvious with this style of music. How do the breakdowns fare? I would compare them a lot to Lorna Shore's record Immortal if you took out some of the really insane, awesome layering that CJ McCreery did. Now, I'm not going to say the vocals here are necessarily a letdown or a disappointment. They certainly do service as like an extra instrument in the sense of how commanding of a presence they are. And I think think the first leg of the album in comparison is a lot more standout on breakdowns, makes me get a little bit more into it, sounds a little bit more thrilling, but by sort of the mid to latter half of the record, such as Death Worship, the breakdown just reads to me like a lot of other brutal deathcore bands that I hear, most notably on the Unique Leader Records camp. Mental Cruelty has upped the theatrics, and their production is as crisp as ever. But in my opinion, I think one of the things that sort of messes with this record is just how theatrical and epic and over the top they were trying to portray this record. I think in the past, Mental Cruelty really did blend it a lot better. Even 2 years ago on Infurious, I think they had a much more cohesive way of taking their theatrics and the nature of their music and blending it with their brutal deathcore to set themselves apart. Now, I think they're not really mastering either parts of their sound. The brutal deathcore sort of blends in with a lot of other things that you're hearing right now, and the technical aspects of the black metal just come off extremely rudimentary, where you'll get lost in the chaos and feel like there is so much you're being hit with, so much that is smashing you, but nothing being done of necessary substance, and it seems like they didn't really know what direction they wanted to take a certain track in, and they'll have a multifaceted nature to them. They'll pause the track, they'll let it breathe a little bit, but the constant frenzy that this record poses just leads me to believe that from a direction standpoint, Mental Cruelty was not necessarily at the top of their game, despite how crisp this mix is, and I really do want to applaud and highlight just how good this mix is. This record's perfectly serviceable, and it is definitely above average for both brutal deathcore fans and people that are enjoying the growing Blackened death metal phase, but I also think that for this scene, with how many great bands are coming on the scene, I think Mental Cruelty is definitely going to have to do something to their sound to sort of boast them up and continue them to be relevant into the future. I definitely enjoyed listening to this record more often than I didn't, but on repeated listens, I think that it exposes many of its flaws. I'm going to be giving this album a 6.5 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Mental Cruelty record, A Hill to Die Upon? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss this record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.